Okay, so we're recording. So what we're going to do today is Mia's going to take us through what the Canvas course looks like for RPL. She's going to log on as one of you guys and take you through that process. Obviously, I spoke to Debbie and Lucy before lunch and we worked out some little road, bumps in the road on that. So I've asked Mia to walk us through what it looks like, maybe talk through what some of the expectations are for evidence. Now Mia's got some low bandwidth today, so what I might do is if we have problems with her, it's more her audio, what we might all do is if it starts to go wobbly, I'll ask you to go to mute and maybe turn your videos off. So as in we can't see you, but allow her to have max bandwidth. Then we're going to hand over to James, and James is going to do a bit of a recap as to where we're up to. Now, when I planned this program, I was very mindful of the fact that we were starting in school holidays, starting with possibly kids at home being homeschooled, and also with sewing. So we started very, very slowly. So if you're a little bit behind what we planned, don't panic. The idea was to really start and get some more momentum from June. Okay, so but James will sort of do a bit of an overview of where you roughly should be and where we're going in the future, and focus on probably what the target is for the next couple of weeks. So I'd encourage, if you've got questions, you can use the chat function underneath on the bottom of your screen. Feel free to type up any questions as you go. And what we'll do is, particularly about RPL, you can type your questions there. There will be time to ask me a specific questions at the end, and the same thing for James. So I'll leave that to you. So Mia, I'll hand over to you for a bit of an RPL update and a bit of a walkthrough on what it looks like from a perspective.
Okay, hello, and it's nice to see some faces to some names that I've been seeing of things pop up there in the RPL course. So yeah, today I just wanted to give you a quick, I guess, a zoom around of what the RPL course looks like. We went over this in our previous Zoom call, but I just thought it would be valuable just to walk you through what it looks like, and also what an assessment guide will look like when you jump into those units. Like Nolene said, if you've got any specific questions about things that you're working on at the moment in regards to RPL, you can tap them in the chat box, or you can email them to me and I can talk to them if they're specifically about your situation. So that's fine. I also just want to say I have a recording of the previous, of the previous Zoom call that we did that was just specifically for the RPL section. So if my bandwidth does get quite low and I get a bit patchy, I'll upload that into the announcement part and we can have that as a recording in there. But to start with, I'll jump into my screen. Let me just share my screen with you. Okay. So you'll have two tiles on your dashboard of Canvas. One will be for the Farm Business Planning study course that you're with James with, and the other will be this RPL Diploma of Agribusiness course. Now, this encompasses all of your RPL units. So it's the one tile for all 4 units that you'll need to select. But if you click on that and you go to the home page, you'll see a bit of an information overview of what RPL is and a few websites and some background detail on getting started. But the main section that you want to work through is the modules section. So if you go into modules view, I'll click on that now. Am I going, Nolene? Is this good bandwidth? Is it working?
It's okay for me. Anyone can hear me?
Okay, great.
Okay.
So this is the modules view. Oh, wait there. Wait one moment. Working. Here we go. So just that you'll have an introductory section, which is basically the welcome page that I just showed you. Then we jump into our candidate information. Now, all of these models are miniature uploads. So we need you to upload your enrolment form, your candidate introduction, which is optional. You can do a short video, fraud identification, your previous training, which is really quite in the RPL sector because we need to see what you've previously trained in and see if any of that training that you've done can, one, be awarded credit transfer, or two, it can contribute to the units that you're attempting to achieve as evidence of your learning. Obviously, a resume is really important because that shows your work history and the background of where you've gathered your skills and knowledge from. A job description and a farm organisation description, farmer organisation description. So this information just helps us build an initial picture of you as a student in the RPL program, which contributes to each of the units that you will be attempting to achieve. So a simple upload is basically just into the resume. Simple instructions, please upload your resume and click the submit now button, and that's where you upload. You may notice if you do a couple of submissions, which you can do, you will only see the last submission that you've done. So if I've made a comment directly on that submission, you may not see it. So just make sure you check the overall comments box on that assessment task. Now, if we go back to modules again, once we've got all this candidate information put together, you'll see that I'll give you a tick if it's submitted correctly and it's the correct information. So just in our RTO world, we need specific information on your enrolment form, certain details, or you may have had an error in uploading. I'll give you some feedback. So I'll give you a tick once we've got it all. If you get a cross and a comment, just resubmit or make the adjustments and then upload again.
I think there was a question
So then,
just before you go on, Mia, from Stacey, possibly relating to one of those points you were just talking on.
Let me just have a look.
Yeah, I just asked how you know that you've actually completed them, because it doesn't come up until, like, I keep going into each of them and going, oh yeah, I've done that one. Do I have to do that one? Like, does it show a tick or something here?
Yeah, you should see a completion tick that comes off that that you've uploaded it and that I've ticked that off. I'll have a look into that. There may be something our end that's not switched on. Let me just write a note of that. Okay, so like I said, I've popped up here 8 units for you to select from. We only need to select 4 units. So any 4, doesn't matter what 4, whatever 4 you feel suit your skills and knowledge, your current skills and knowledge. So you'll have a look once we pop into each module for the unit. This will all be the same information for every single unit, but this assessment guide will be specific for that unit. So I will just change my screen to show you. Stop sharing. Share screen. I want to share this screen. Okay, so this is what an assessment guide for each unit will look like. you'll notice that it's got the unit name and a short description of what it is. The training is basically the training that you have uploaded in that first bit of information. So your qualifications, things like that you've uploaded, your transcripts and things like that. So you won't need to worry about that in this section. The main thing is the observe, the O, and the A. So if you open these assessment guides, focus on thinking about, can I provide this type of evidence that is required to illustrate my skills and knowledge? And can I answer these questions? And are they relevant to my skills and knowledge? So we want you to answer them. We don't need essays as such or masses of information. If it's a dot point answer, that's fine. But we just want you to answer them in the context of your situation and how you've learnt that information, and how you'd go about approaching certain situations given your experience in that area. So they are the main things that you need to focus on when deciding what unit best suits your skills and knowledge. What evidence can I provide? And can I answer these questions? So you'll notice on here that there's a confirm section as well, which is asking you to provide a third-party report, or a third-party, someone that can support your skills and knowledge in that area. So that could be your supervisor, it could be your previous place of employment. It may, in some circumstances, be a family member, and that's fine. But if it is a family member, we just need to have some sort of reassurance that they were in an authority type position of your role. So they were the farm manager and you were the farm business admin person. So that's where, in the previous information that I was showing you, the position description and the farm and business organisation description sometimes helps us to decide whether that person that you have put in there as a family member is appropriate for that letter of support to provide for you. And then you'll notice the L section here, that's basically your resume. So we just need to have a look and see where you've gained this life experience from and how it's going to, I guess, support the evidence that you've provided. So you'll notice these sheets, they'll also have a section here for you to put the answers in, which were asked up the top here. So to complete a unit, we just need 2 submissions. One, this completed answers sheet here, and a zip file of all of your evidence that you've compiled for that unit. You can upload a couple of zip files. So I'll have a look at it once you pop it up and give you some feedback along the way. So if there's something that you're missing or something that we might need extra, I'll certainly give you some feedback and some suggestions on how you could go about creating that if you're still working in those positions, or give you ideas of what extra evidence that you could provide, or essentially say, hey, I don't think this unit's for you, let's choose another unit. Okay. Are there any questions on that?
Just a quick question, Mia. When you're coming back to these letters of support, is it, particularly if, say, I've been working in the same place for the same person, is it okay to have one letter to cover all 4 units?
Yeah. Certainly, if you've been working for the same person for that period of time and that's where you've gained your skills and knowledge from, that's certainly okay. That's okay. All right, so basically that's it. If you've got any questions, I'll try and give you all a call along or throughout the process just to touch base. But for the people that have started uploading, that's great. I'm really happy to see that you're navigating and using the Canvas board well and putting things up there. I'll double check on the marks and how they're shown to you guys, because that's quite frustrating if you can't see where you're up to as such along the way. But yeah, that's me. Any other questions in general?
It looks like I'm seeing lots of shakings of heads. So, well, that's really good. So what we'll do now is we'll hand over to you, James.
Yep, no worries. Thanks, Darlene. Well, welcome back, everyone. So if you all have your program with you, I'm just going to have a quick talk about sort of the timeline we're on. So today's meeting number 2, and today we're going to cover module 4 and the rest of assessment task 1. So obviously, if you're not up to this stage yet, that's okay. Don't panic. We've kind of penciled in the 15th of July for assessment task 1 template to be complete, just to sort of keep us on track to be finishing within that 6-month period. So I think probably this Zoom meeting will just be going through from sections 9 through to the end of the template, and maybe the next Zoom meeting on the 15th of July, that can be sort of a bit of a recap of the whole template and then sort of what's going on next. So I'll just screen share so that we can all start on module 4. And if anyone has any questions about other modules, there's the previous recordings on the announcements file within the Farm Business Management Canvas site, so you can have a look through them. Otherwise, just get in touch and I can go over some things. We'll have questions at the end of this. So I'll just share what I've got. Okay, so hopefully, can everyone see that? Darlene? Yep, cool. So we're down here to tutorial 4 now. So I'll let you guys go through that in your own time. And just as we have been before, just working through everything. And we'll kind of be able to complete the rest of the table template from that. So here's our template 1. And already some of you might have got up to the point where we're talking about now. Otherwise, just work your way through the sections. And we're going to be looking at completing this template by that July date. So we've already talked about these in the past videos. Okay, so we're down to section 9 now. So this section is just a short little learning box that is just asking you, what do you think some of the main risks might be for your business based on some of the goals and strategies that you've talked about above. And those risks can be anything from production risks to climate risks to people risks. It can be any of those sort of things. Try to think of the main ones that you've got in your mind based on the business scenario. So section 10, we've got production plan for the next 12 months. So we're really just asking the different enterprises and then the numbers, livestock numbers or cropping area. So that can be anything from trade steers to individual crops as well. So if you've got multiple crops on the farm, try to list each individual crop as a different sort of production plan. And then you've got the areas and livestock numbers. So that one's fairly straightforward. So now, strategies, actions and tasks. This is a table that a lot of students have some issues with because it is a little bit tricky, knowing the difference between strategies and actions. There is a little bit of crossover. Essentially, your strategy is kind of a broader strategy based on your goals, and it's going to be addressing an individual part of your production plan or your overall business strategy. So I've got an example here to hopefully clear it up on how to sort of roughly structure a strategies and actions or tasks table. So here we've got a dairy example. Of course, I'm a bit biased here, but I've got grow herd to 200 cows. So if we had one of our goals was to grow our herd to 200 cows by this date here, we'd put that in as a key sort of strategy. We can break down our goals a little bit more if they have multiple strategies within those goals too. So try to think about your goal as a series of strategies. So we've got an individual strategy here to grow the herd to 200 cows. We've got the people responsible for these decisions, and we've got the due dates. And trying to be as specific as possible with due dates is always a good thing. So that's our broad strategy. Now we need some actions and tasks to be completed to meet that strategy. So we've got, and I like to put them in just dot points, because then you can go through the dot points and tick them off as you complete them. And at the end of the dot points, the actions and tasks, we should be able to achieve this strategy. So down here, I've got check in on cows through Dairy Livestock Services on Facebook, and we've got who's going to be doing it and when they're going to be doing it. So that'll be a way of us sort of finding the cows that we need to boost numbers. We've got keep a strict fertiliser routine on new pasture milking platform. So that's the new pasture we've put in for the cows. We've got who's going to do that, and we've got when. We've got undertake a feed budget and forward order hay if needed. We've got who and we've got when too. So you can see we've got a series of tasks that are really going to meet this strategy. And if we've got multiple strategies within a goal, then we're going to be achieving our goals if we can meet these strategies with completing these actions and tasks. So that's for a 12-month period. So the next 12 months, these strategy actions and tasks are for the next 2 to 5 years. So you're going to have slightly different strategies to achieve, obviously based on your short and long-term goals. So does that make sense to everyone? It's sort of pretty important to differentiate between your strategies and your tasks.
I'll ask a question because I'm up to this in my assessment task and I'm doing the case study, and I've got to get my head around this because I'm not a sheep farmer and the case study has sheep. So using your example there, so I understand the first 12 months, so would you have a 2 to 5 year strategy for your grow your herd to 200 cows? Are you looking as that's the 5-year plan and you just mentioned the first bit, or?
No, so this is only those strategies aimed at the next 12 months. So if this was grow herd to 200, sorry, talking about cows, that's really annoying. So if we had this goal of 200 cows in 2 to 5 years, we'd put it down here. I've just put that up there because that's just an example of one that might happen in 12 months' time. So we want to keep it fairly specific to these time periods.
Okay, I think I got confused because I thought you might be doing the first 12 months of your 2 to 5 year strategy. So you're actually saying in the first 12 months is the things you're going to complete in 12 months, and underneath that would be the things that it's going to take 2 to 5 years to complete.
Yep, that's
okay.
Exactly.
Got it now.
Yep.
I hope I didn't confuse anyone else with that.
So just on that, can you just give us an example of a 2 to 5 year strategy in regard to cattle? Like, like for me, like we just continue.
Yeah, so
it's a bit hard.
It depends on your goals a bit. So, and your timeline, it's going to be up to the individual what timeline they want to meet. So, some people choose to get things done within that first 12 months, where other people might choose the same goal but do it over a longer period. So, it really depends on the individual business and on the individual goals. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up in time frames so much, rather than breaking down your goals into these strategies and having a think about our SMART goals again, and that R standing for realistic. Let's think about, what time frame is realistic to meet some of those goals. So yeah, obviously that can be an experiential thing, or that can take a bit of research to kind of work out how much time that could take. So if we're going into a cattle breeding program, maybe we're changing from trading to breeding. Obviously, that's going to be a fairly long-term have a fairly long-term impact. So you're looking at that 2 to 5 years, really. Some people might go out, get rid of all their trade steers and purchase breeders and get going within the 12 months. So it really depends on the individual business. Yeah. Did that sort of clear it up a little? Clear as mud? Or?
I think for me, James, it did, because now what I'm going to look, when I look at the case study, I'm going to, obviously we've done those targets and goals, and I'm actually going to go back to them and go, realistically, how long is it going to take me to do some of these things? Are some of these a 12-month job, or are they a 3-year job? And then that I'll make that decision on time frame and being realistic. Yep. Then I'll fill out the actions. I think, yeah, because I will say that I struggled with this table when I went to do it the other weekend. I went, but now I think for me, if I start with thinking about what is it I'm trying to do and how long realistically will it take, that will help me determine where to structure this.
Yep. Yeah, and just going back to those SMART goals that you've created above, always keeping them in the back of your mind, and that's kind of going to drive your production plan, and it's going to drive your strategies and actions. It's going to drive most of your business decisions. I suppose strategies and actions are just a way of breaking those goals down even more, so that you've got a really clear set of instructions on what or targets on when you want to hit and when you want to hit them by, and the actions to go with them. It can really be useful in a farming business, and we've used this on our own farm. Just the fact that you can sit down when you have completed one of these steps and you can tick it off, it's a real motivator, because then okay, that task is done, I'm going on to the next one, and I know that at the end of these steps I'm going to hit my goal, and then you can form another goal. So it's always ongoing, and it's always going to change.
Yeah, I found, just by my experience so far, just working through the case study, that I'm going to have to go back and change all my timeframes, because when I started to do what I could achieve in the first 12 months, it was just unrealistic. It was just, I thought, oh, okay. When I first started my goals, I thought, yes, first 12 months. But then it sort of, by unpacking it that way, it made it very clear that what I was thinking was just not going to happen in 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah, and business plans are designed to be living, or, designed to be editable anytime, really. So as we progress, and the weather might come in really bad, and we have to keep reviewing our business plan and our goals, especially because if we keep them the same, they're going to become, sort of irrelevant, and we're not going to be keeping on top of them and achieving goals. And there's nothing more discouraging than not achieving multiple goals. So really important to keep them realistic. Yeah. And like I've said before, really important to develop these with the farming team. Anyone that's going to be making these decisions, anyone in this column here needs to be involved in developing these strategies and actions. So, yeah, if anyone else gets to this later on and needs any other help, just get in touch with me via Canvas. So section 11, calendar of operations. This one's fairly straightforward. So we're just looking at any of the sort of broad general activities that relate to livestock or cropping activities, and other activities that might be maintenance, things like that. So just trying to think fairly broadly. obviously it's up to you how detailed you want to go into it. But just always keeping in mind that maybe your farm staff might be reading this table, and they might want an idea of, okay, next month I've got to get some equipment ordered or some spares ordered because I'm doing, a big overhaul of some bit of gear or something, or I'm going to be doing cattle work, so I'm going to need to know to get some drench or whatever. So just always keeping in mind that it might not only be you reading these tables. So that's calendar of operations. Section 12, marketing plans. Okay, so we're going to have a marketing plan for each of our enterprises. So this can mean that if you have chickpeas, that'll have a separate marketing plan than barley. Or if you have, trade steers, that'll have a different marketing plan than direct to butcher and something like that. So we want to break our farm up into these enterprises and give them a marketing plan each. So we've got our target market, who we're targeting that product to. So be specific as possible. Try to go to the end consumer. We've got market specifications and client/customer preferences. So market specs are really specific. So when we look at, say, malt barley, we're going to have very specific protein content, very specific colour, depending on our target market, very specific, say, megajoules of metabolizable energy. So we can find a lot of these market specifications online. So MLA has some really good market specs for say, the Japox market, or any of the markets that are out there have different market specifications. So have a Google on that if you don't already have your specific market specs. Quality control strategies, they're just how you're going to keep that quality in your product. So maybe post-harvest treatments, things like that. It can be generally sort of keeping up soil fertility and that sort of thing throughout the growing season. Post-harvest handling, so that's your post-harvest treatments. Marketing chain. So we've got, we really want to see exactly the chain of marketing here. So from the grower, where does it go next? Where does it go? Where does it go? Where does it go? And to the final consumer. So try and find out as much about those steps as possible. It can really open our eyes to what our target market is going through to get that product. Transport arrangements, so that can be as simple as sort of the cattle leave the farm with the trucking company and go straight to the feedlot. It might be self-trucking grain to a grain corp silo or something. Okay, selling method and costs. So this refers to things like, is the product being forward sold? Is it sold on the spot market, or is it sold just at the sale yards on the day? What costs are involved in that selling method? So whether there's a commission, things like that. Okay, so alternative selling methods available. Have a bit of a research on the alternative selling methods for your enterprises. There's a whole lot of ways to sell our agricultural commodities these days, so good to have a bit of a research on that. Pricing and credit policy. How is price determined? Is it going to be set by the farmer, like farmers market sort of niche farmers, or is it going to be priced on the day, sort of bulk commodity pricing? And credit policies. So if you are selling direct, is it 30-day terms, or is it funds on delivery sort of thing? That's what that refers to. Strategy into actions to add value, direct, increase returns, decrease transport and selling costs, use alternative methods, advertise and promote, build client satisfaction, build client loyalty, increase customer base. So we need a dot point, at least one dot point for each of these dot points here on that. And so we've got different tables. So we really need marketing plan for each enterprise. That only makes sense really to have a really clear idea on what on how we market each enterprise.
James, could I just ask, if we have, say, product like we grow oats, but we only grow it to feed back to our stock?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, where we have other options available to us, and if we have an excess, we might sell to another local farmer or something like that. How do we classify that as an enterprise? If I'm just growing a product to
yeah, it's kind of like an opportunity cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's up to you whether you want to include it. If most of the time you're just feeding it to animals, I probably wouldn't worry about it. But if it's something that you think could add profitability to your business, and you wanted to, say, compare the two, so you could do some figures on the comparison with feeding it to your animals, or having a marketing plan like this, and what sort of pricing you could be looking at for that. That's really up to you. This is sort of not a partial budget, it's just a marketing plan. So if you can't see yourself marketing it, then I probably wouldn't bother about putting it in.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so heading down, labour requirements. So this is, there's two tables, livestock and farming or cropping. Okay, so labour requirements is sort of what each labour unit may be doing, and how many people, and I usually like to put in the hours, approximate hours required. So you can put in the name of the staff members, or you can put labour units, so how many labour units. Some people prefer that method of measuring staff requirements, and then just their tasks that they're going to be doing throughout the months. So
James, it's Lucy and Deb here. With the labour and staff requirements, if you're a one-person operation, you just write your name in every month.
Yeah, that's you might want you might want, just for interest's sake, you might want to put in your approximate hours required.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah,
it can be a good table just to get an idea if you had to employ someone, say if you got injured or sick or something like that, just knowing roughly how many hours are required to run sort of different things can be helpful. But that's up to you. You just want to put your name in and what activities, that's fine too.
Yeah, okay, no worries. Thank you.
Can I just ask there also, if you have just livestock activities, like one of the livestock activities is literally just you have to go and check the stock. That's and not necessarily do anything, but you literally have to go and look at them. That's a recurring activity. How do we include that, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think you include that just as a normal sort of line event, just dot point, and just monitoring or checking livestock, and who, and even how long it would take each month. And it could be as simple as daily, or every second day. You could be saying that.
Rather than putting hours on it, just put daily.
You could, yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, section 14. So again, we're considering our goals, critical success factors and KPIs, so that we've already done previously. And we're looking at resources now. So we're looking at maintenance of resources, expansion and new additions planned, conservation and land management, and review of current production in terms of sustainability. So this is where we get into our strategies and actions again. So just keeping in mind that formula of developing your strategies and actions. And it's really just trying to think about all of these little things that pop up day to day on the farm. Some of them are sort of bigger events like expansions and new additions planned, and try to think of all the aspects and all the enterprises within the business. Conservation land management, that's something that tends to be overlooked a little bit. But yeah, just generally sort of having some strategies and actions for them as well. Now, a review of current production practices in terms of sustainability. This is where a bit of critical analysis comes in with our own farming businesses, and just really delving into our own farms and thinking, how sustainable are we in terms of cropping practices and rotations, soil structure, topsoil erosion, water table and salinity. So there are some really cool measures out there from catchment management authorities on how to sort of test soil fertility, soil structure and those sort of things. Tocal even has some really cool resources if you want to delve into it a little bit more. Maybe you've already done some of that with land care. Really good to sort of give yourself a bit of an idea of a bit of critical thinking on how well you're going in terms of sustainability. It's a fairly subjective sustainability sometimes, but often it can be just about looking around the farm and sort of saying, oh, well, there's a bit of erosion there and that might need fixing and that sort of thing. Salinity can be an issue on some places. And we go into sort of chemical use and the effect on biodiversity, grazing practices and stocking rates on ground cover. Obviously, with the recent drought, there's going to be some people that will have sort of recognised that they might have overstocked, and some that might have recognised that destocking might have helped the sustainability. So it's really about going into that and thinking about how we've gone through different situations on farm. So we've also got effective farm production on water quality and long-term supply. Okay, so they're the main tables for the template, and then we're going down now to cash flow budget. So some of you, maybe most of you, might already have cash flow budgets. That's fine to include them. Don't go and do it, redo the template. Yeah, so just include the existing one you already have. So this is for the next 12 months. So coming up to the end of financial year now, might be a good opportunity to get a budget done anyway. So yeah, keep that in mind.
James, can I interrupt there? Sorry, we
Yep.
we run our budget year from April to March. So our budget will only be to March. Is that okay if I submit something like that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No, that's all good. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter what months you're budgeting for, as long as there's a 12 months there. And it just there's a few key parts that a cash flow budget should include. I can go through that briefly now, but if you want a more in-depth look at cash flow budgets, let me know and I can go through it in a bit more detail. So we've got cash flow budget and balance sheet, and with the template within Canvas, you've got a trial balance sheet and a cash flow budget template here anyway. It's got the formulas all set up, so it'll automatically do your net income, things like that. So we've got monthly opening balance, monthly closing balance, and that's going to be determined by what you have in these columns. So for those of you who have done cash flow budgets, fairly simple. For those of you who haven't, really you're just putting in your income figures in the different months, and you're putting your different months up the top here. So it's up to you what month you want to start on. So you've got income from livestock, crops, other farm income, then you've got all your expenses, and you'll get totals down here, monthly cash balance, and that'll change as income and expenses go throughout the year. So I won't spend much time on that because many of you have probably had experience with that. But if you do want to have a chat about in depth, then we can do that. Okay, so that brings us to section 17, risk management. So at least one risk for each category. So we've got climate or weather. I'm pretty sure most of us will have more than one risk under that category, but anyway, you only need one. Natural resources. So can we see any risks with our natural resources, so our water or our soil? Production risks, marketing, obviously at the moment with some of the things that have happened with trade, we might have some marketing risks there. Financial risks, that's things like interest rates. It can be amount of debt, things like that. Personal and staff risks. What sort of risks can we see in personal or staff? How's everyone coping? You know, do we have older staff that, you know, might be struggling a bit, or do we have some younger people that are showing mental health issues or something like that? We've always got risks with people. Compliance. So this is how we're complying with legalities. So what sort of risks do we have there? Do we have changing food safety requirements that might cost the business? Things like that. Communication strategy. So how are we going to communicate the business plan? So there's a huge range of ways we can do that. We can email it out. We could just have a farm meeting and talk about it. To who? So who's going to know what's in the business plan, and how often are we going to review it? Is it going to be every quarter? Is it going to be every 6 months, 12 months? Okay, and that's it for that template. So a bit more than what we've been working on before, but it's all about just going through the steps and getting that complete. This is the biggest part of the subject. So once this is all in, this is sort of fact gathering, and then we go onto a proper business plan template and onto some shorter assessments after that. So yeah, if there's any questions on anything we've gone through, sing out. Otherwise, have a think about it, and you can always get in touch with me later on.
Okay, any questions from the group? Everyone's madly writing, I can see. Okay, so just take James up on his offer. He is available for one-on-one sessions. The next time he's having, James, when's your next open mic? Give him a call afternoon. It's in about 2 weeks' time, isn't it? So what James does is we have a Zoom meeting, and then a fortnight later, he has an afternoon where he's readily available after lunch to take any phone calls, and he can actually do individual Zoom meetings with you if you need to share information. So say if you've done your cash flow budget and you want some feedback, that's a good opportunity to set up a Zoom, or ask James for a Zoom session, and so you can share screens. So all of that's available to keep everyone on track. So any final questions? No, I can see everyone's good. Thumbs up from everyone. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And what I will do for those people who are going to listen to this later, again, reach out. We're here. We're happy to help, happy to support. It's a different world for all of us, having to do these things via Zoom than having some face-to-face stuff, but we will get there, and I'll post this recording. So let's call it a wrap and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, James. Thanks, Mel. See ya.
Hey, everyone.